Welcome back to the Well-Regulated Podcast. This is episode number 14. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a little over a week since we had those inmates escape from the Orleans Parish jail, and they've captured 5 so far. Still got 5 on the loose: Antoine Massey, Lenton Van Buren, Leo Tate, Derek Groves, and Jermaine Donald. And if you wanted to right now on Polymarket, you could go bet on which one will be captured first. So you got all the betting markets here. So place your bets, I guess. Place your bets. So it's been a little over a week. We've caught about half of them. So I wanted to kind of go over how these particular 5 were captured, and we have all of that broken down in several ways. We got a couple of news stories, a longer kind of documentary, and we just got some stuff to go over. So without further ado, let's get started. But make sure you leave a thumbs up and make sure you share this episode with your friends. So let's go. So here's their little documentary here. We're going to let this boot up and we'll go through it. So it says, our detailed day-by-day timeline reveals how the escape unfolded and why victims, witnesses, and even prosecutors have now gone into hiding. Let's go. This is WWL4 local for New Orleans.
A bold escape.
Several inmates on Pod 1 Delta were missing.
10 inmates shimmy open a cell door, carve their way through a wall.
There are clean cuts here, and the plumbing had been removed.
And make a run for it with no one watching.
And the technician that was assigned to the housing unit module had actually stepped away to grab.
Why? Now, what's a technician, and why was a technician in charge of watching a pod full of inmates instead of a jail guard or a sheriff's deputy?
A now viral photo shows the messages they left behind taunting the jail staff. It would take hours before the Orleans Sheriff's Office alerted anyone on the outside.
One of the other chiefs picked up the phone and said, well, it's in the media.
A firestorm of criticism erupts with calls for the sheriff to resign. Victims, witnesses, even prosecutors forced into hiding.
Just get all our family members out of the city.
I am personally afraid, not just for myself, but for my lawyers.
This is the New Orleans Jailbreak, the first 7 days.
All right, the first 7 days. Let's go.
Well, thank you for watching our special coverage of the Orleans Parish jail. Problems now being blamed for allowing a total of 10 inmates to reach freedom. For 5 of the prisoners, it would only be temporary. Half of the escapees were back in custody 1 week after the escape. Devin Bartolotta breaks it down, walking us through all the major events since the inmates made it out of the Orleans Justice Center.
It was a week that exposed cracks in the overall security system at the Orleans Justice Center. Cracks in the communication between law enforcement. Cracks that 10 inmates slipped right through unnoticed, giving them an 8-hour head start on law enforcement when minutes mattered.
Here's how it started. Day
All right,
one.
day
At
one, let's go.
12:23 in the morning, Friday, May 16th, inmates began pulling on a cell door, a door that the sheriff's office knew could be manipulated off the track. No staff members were in the pod, and a civilian hired to watch the cameras had stepped away. At 12:43.
So a technician is just a civilian hired to watch the cameras. Even if said civilian was there, was anybody else there? Were there any sheriff's deputies there? Is that why they had a technician? Because there was nobody else? Like, this jail's got a lot of problems, and one of them is staffing.
The inmates entered a cell where the water had apparently been turned off, and someone, either inside that cell or maybe out, sawed through rebar, bolts, and a pipe to make a hole. This is the moment of freedom. At 1:01 a.m., 10 inmates ran out of the loading dock door and reportedly used blankets to climb over razor wire. All 10 of them then ran across the interstate in front of several cars. The hours that followed would be crucial, but the escape went apparently unnoticed through a 6:30 a.m. shift change and wasn't discovered until 8:47 a.m. during morning head count. At some point, staff discovered the hole in the cell wall and the taunting message left behind. Too easy, LOL. At 8:53, the jail was put on lockdown. 9:30, the Marshals Task Force was notified. 10:30, the New Orleans Police Department was notified. 10:50, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office sent out a press release about the escape. At 11:30 a.m., Troop NOLA arrested escapee Kendall Miles in the French Quarter. Around the same time, Sheriff Susan Hudson held her first news conference.
Kendall didn't have a chance. He got busted right away. Didn't even have a whole 24 hours out there, you know? Know what I'm saying? All right, this is where she says that it was done for political reasons.
And release the names of the missing inmates.
Our top priority right now is the safety of the public and returning these individuals to our custody without delay.
Immediately, the finger pointing began. Hudson cited a lack of funding for security problems at the jail.
I think it's safe to say I'm angry. This is absurd.
District Attorney Jason Williams blamed Hudson's poor leadership and just about.
And this guy lets everybody out. So, you know, if he wanted these guys in, it must have been really bad because that motherfucker lets everybody out. Everybody.
Everyone was.
It's one of those Soros DAs. You know what I'm saying? One of those Soros DAs.
Are you gay?
Furious about how long it took to notice the jailbreak and sound the alarm. Not until 1:30 in the afternoon did WWL Louisiana and the public get a look at mugshots of the missing inmates who had enjoyed a full 12 and a half hours.
They could have done. It's really hard to hear that the public didn't even have pictures of who they were until over 12 hours later.
Under the veil of anonymity. At 2:30, a NOLA Ready alert finally went out, and the sheriff implied in an afternoon
I showed you
update,
those alerts. I can show them to you
might be
again.
An inside job.
We think this was intentional. There is much more than meets the eye.
It was intentional by the inmates to escape. They had intention to escape, and they did. The only thing else is incompetence on her.
Hours later, 3 jail employees had been suspended. At 7:30, a Crime Stoppers tip led authorities to a second inmate,
Look at those pants. What is that, a mouth on the crotch?
Robert Moody, in Central City. And later that night, a third, Dakeenan Dennis, was caught in New Orleans East. Saturday, the day.
That homie that was caught in New Orleans East, he was caught in like an abandoned house. Just FYI.
After the escape, Louisiana State Police shared photos of their officers loading Miles, Moody, and Dennis into a helicopter on their way to a state prison. But 7 inmates were still on the run. A terrifying reality for witnesses, victims, and families of victims.
We had to get everyone out of the city.
The family of Jamar Robinson, who was killed by convicted escapee Derek Groves, told WWL Louisiana Saturday that they went into hiding.
I want you to know that you are safe. If you do see something,
Liar.
say something.
We also heard for the first time from Mayor LaToya Cantrell in a video posted to Instagram. She thanked law enforcement, who continued to stage major scenes across the metro, including this street in New Orleans East, which did not lead to the arrest of a missing inmate. But as the pressure to find them increased, so did the reward. Saturday night, it stood at $12,000 per inmate. Day 3, Sunday, netted no inmates, but cranked up the political tension and saw the reward increase to $20,000. Project NOLA released a video from Friday morning of Kendall Miles and possibly another inmate walking in the French Quarter minutes before Miles was caught by state police.
These inmates are accused of serious crimes.
The FBI emphasized Sunday night the consequences of harboring a fugitive.
Turn yourself in.
And Governor Jeff Landry pointed fingers at District Attorney Jason Williams and criminal court judges. He announced plans for the Department of Corrections to audit the jail, plus investigations by the Attorney General and the Inspector General. Day 4, Monday. With no...
So the jail's already on a consent decree and has been under like federal monitoring, and they are like, this place is a mess. So it's all grandstanding at this point by the governor and all this shit.
inmates recaptured over the weekend, we learned more about those still on the run. 5 of 7 of them had either been charged with or convicted of murder or attempted murder.
Yeah, these are bad
2 of
guys.
the inmates had escaped custody previously. And Monday, the simmering frustrations over this escape came to a boil.
I just don't see why you should be sheriff if you can't do your one job.
State Representative Amy Adado Freeman
Pretty
called
much.
for Sheriff Susan Hudson to resign.
Amy Freeman,
District
I
Attorney
know
Jason
her.
Williams fired back at the governor while adding some of his staff members had gone into hiding as well. Sheriff Hudson and Attorney General Liz Murrill were called to an emergency meeting with the federal judge overseeing the jail's consent decree. In Baton Rouge, a new bill was filed to require adult jail facilities to report escapees within 10 minutes. Then, Monday evening,
Had to file
another
a
inmate
bill
was
for
arrested.
that?
21-year-old Gary Price was taken into custody in New Orleans East and then put on a helicopter to a maximum security facility. 4 days in, 6 inmates still missing. On day 5, with 4 recaptured inmates at Louisiana State Penitentiary, there were signs that the internal investigation into their alleged escape was making headway. News came that 33-year-old Sterling Williams was charged with helping out. He was a maintenance worker. Sources say he admitted to turning off water to the cell where a toilet was removed. Williams's attorney said he was just doing his job.
He was used as a tool by the escapees and is being used as a fall guy by Sheriff Hudson.
City Council wanted answers too.
One arrest has been made, and we are continuing to pursue everyone involved.
Sheriff Hudson took responsibility at a meeting with the Criminal Justice Committee. That meeting got heated at times, and Hudson asked for more money for the jail. Later, she announced she was temporarily suspending her re-election campaign to focus on the problem at hand. Local, state, and federal law enforcement were focused too, making a scene, first in Slidell with SWAT, then hours later in the Iberville neighborhood, where state police arrested 19-year-old Corey Boyd in his grandmother's apartment. Day
Got
6,
video of
Wednesday,
that one.
we learn more about that scene in Slidell. It had ties to one of 2.
All right, here we go.
Taken inside the apartment complex you see just behind me. I took that video to District Attorney Jason Williams, and while watching it, he said, it's clear Corey Boyd had help. Tonight, he's sending a stern warning to anyone who may be assisting these escapees. You too will be prosecuted. This exclusive video obtained by WDSU shows Corey Boyd being arrested inside the Bienville Basin Apartments Tuesday night.
The idea that they are bringing this hell, this fresh hell to your home, to your doorstep, means that they don't care.
Dogs are seen snapping at the 19-year-old escaped inmate as deputies command him to get on the ground.
Someone had to provide that access, and that help, just that bit of assistance alone, is a crime.
This video was obtained just hours before 32-year-old Courtney Harris and 38-year-old Corvante Baptiste were arrested on felony accessory.
So anyway, there was that homie getting captured. Let's go back to that story.
2 women charged with helping inmates after the escape. Say Corvante Baptiste and Courtney Harris got food, communicated by phone, and helped drive inmates around. And new video obtained by WWL Louisiana showed the men walking in the CBD near Barone Street about an hour after the jailbreak.
I saw the locks issues, I saw the hinges issue, I saw what they were talking about with the sliding doors.
Attorney General Liz Murrill and DA Williams got their first look at the jail and the security problems in it. And at the state level, Governor Jeff Landry signed an executive order.
Today, we say enough is enough.
Directing multiple agencies to put OJC and New Orleans justice system under a microscope. Only 5 inmates were in
how's that
custody
going to
by
help
Wednesday,
catch these
with none of them
escaped
having
people?
traveled even 10 miles from the Orleans Justice Center. Day
Just
7,
these ones, though.
Another day without an
All
inmate
right, pause.
arrest. But
This homie, Antoine Massey, he's escaped like 4 times already. One of the times he's made it all the way out to Texas. So I don't know. If I were to bet on that betting pool, I'd say he might last the longest. So let's go.
59-year-old Connie Whedon of Slidell was taken into custody, accused of helping one escapee and giving him money. Also Thursday, WWL.
It was her grandchild. So they should have said that. They should have said that. It was her grandson. It wasn't just some random old lady who gave one of them money. He probably called up. She didn't know he was in jail. And he was like, yo, grandma, I need some money. My sister does that to my grandma all the time. Like, come on.
Louisiana obtained more video of those inmates strolling through the CBD the morning of the jailbreak. And we learned that the district attorney's office had to step in and call the crime lab to collect DNA, fingerprints, and other evidence.
To add more to Susan Hudson's incompetence, they hadn't even processed the crime scene till very recently. There's so much that could have been tampered with in that amount of time. It hadn't even been like quarantined, like nobody come to this area. You know what I mean?
I am deeply concerned that there was not an immediate request by the sheriff.
The list of probes, investigations, and players is continuing to grow.
Those gas lamps were cool, huh?
Responsibility and rectification on center stage. Devin Bartolotta,
Boom.
WWL,
He falls.
Louisiana.
Love it.
And as you can imagine, when word of the inmates' escape from the Orleans Justice Center reached their alleged victims, there were questions over not only how this could happen, but why they weren't notified. Some families say they didn't even receive a call alerting them of the jailbreak. Others say the thought of these escapees being back on the streets sent them into hiding.
That's so messed up.
No one notified us. No one tell us anything.
Derek Groves is one of the inmates who broke out of OJC, along with 9 others. He initially made headlines after being found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 charges of attempted second-degree murder in a Mardi Gras Day shooting in 2018, claiming the lives of Byron Jackson and Jamar Robinson. Now, Robinson's family, who asked to remain anonymous for fear of their safety, are in hiding as Derek Groves remains on the loose.
Yeah, I would
Groves
be
was
too.
set for sentencing in July of this year after being convicted last year in their family member's murder.
You know, we had to leave work. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how Derek Groves felt like with this process of us. You know, either he was coming for us. We didn't know.
It's a fear shared.
So the thing about this Derek Groves situation, so he was the only one who was like convicted of a crime. I think the rest were awaiting trial. But in New Orleans, they have this stupid thing where instead of sending him to a prison, they'll just let him stay in the jail. I don't know. Make it make sense. Progressive policies, I suppose. But look.
By some of the alleged.
Now he's got people in hiding because they're afraid he's going to come after him, which he might.
Victims of the escapees, and in anger, they weren't notified by authorities that their lives could be in danger. Another shooting victim says his alleged.
Not could be. Their lives are in danger. You have to assume that these guys are going after their witnesses and victims and stuff. You have to.
Perpetrator's escape stoked fears he would try to finish the job.
My mother called me up and told me that Kendall Miles escaped from prison.
Kendall Miles, the first escapee to be captured, is accused of shooting this victim in 2022. That was as he was on the run during another escape, this time from the Bridge City Center for Youth.
That's the only thing that's going through my head is that looking for me again to try to shoot me again and make it right by killing me.
But District Attorney Jason Williams says the fear of retaliation is widespread, even pushing 2 of his prosecutors to leave the city.
I am personally afraid.
Yeah, because the people who are trying to put these guys away are also in danger.
We're asking for a life sentence of this man, and he is now at large. 2 of the lawyers who I tried that case with, who successfully went forward, able to get a conviction on that case. These lawyers got out of town this weekend with their families out of fear of retribution and retaliation.
Acts of retaliation are why some are calling foul at OJC. It wasn't known for hours some inmates were running loose on the streets. DA Williams has been critical not only of Sheriff Susan Hudson's handling of the jailbreak, but why all victims and their family members weren't immediately notified.
Exactly why. Watch this guy, slow-mo.
They have every right to be, because this should not have happened. And if it happened at 1 a.m., they should have been notified at 1:30.
The Louisiana legislature is in session, and in the immediate aftermath of the jailbreak, a bill was amended requiring jails to report escapes within 10 minutes.
Can't believe that had to be a law.
The bill was amended by House
That's
Criminal
so
Justice
stupid.
Committee Chair Debbie Villio, who says in part it is inexcusable that the prison break of the magnitude of the one that occurred in New Orleans could go unreported for hours. It is irresponsible for an agency not to sound the alarm about possible harm to a community. A similar bill made it past Governor Jeff Landry's desk last year, requiring public notification of juvenile escapees.
Several inmates on Pod 1 Delta were missing during their head count.
Until the remaining escapees are caught, the families we spoke to say they will remain in the shadows, hoping these alleged criminals are brought to justice once again.
We were inside the jail just weeks before the escape with Sheriff Susan Hudson showing us some of the issues like broken locks. And WWL investigative reporter Mike Pearlstein toured that jail with Hudson.
All right,
shortly
this
after
is
she was
before
elected
the
in
escape, they said.
2022. Joining us now for a
So let's check it
discussion
out.
on how this all played out. There were issues that Hudson pointed out 2-3 years ago with the jail.
In particular, those jail cell doors, which can be moved off their tracks so that they don't lock properly. And she showed us how inmates took advantage of that by stuffing towels or, wadded up tissue paper to keep those off the track and use that, at different times when they're supposed to be locked down to get out of their cells.
I know a lot of people said that they were having issues. Susan Hudson spoke up about this before. We did not receive the funding to fix those things. So why is that?
Well, that's actually being investigated by the City Council, among others, as to what kind of funding the sheriff did get and what it went toward. However, she did point out that there were.
You think that homie would stand up against that whole pod full of inmates? I don't think so.
At the time in 2022, when I took that tour, she blamed a lot of it on her predecessor not maintaining, the facility, which was relatively new, 2015, when that new jail opened. And there are obviously questions from 2022 up to present where the money went, why some of these
they partied with it. It's what all the officials in New Orleans do.
Prior to the millage election, we went on a tour and she pointed out some of the same problems and issues still existed. So I do think now that there's a lot of attention on Sheriff Hudson's administration of the jail and actually the building itself. Where did the money go? She went so far as to tell us during the course of our coverage that they don't have any kind of a maintenance contract.
Isn't Governor Landry doing proposed an audit on the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office?
Yes, he's proposed an audit.
No maintenance contract. They got to do audits. Like, the whole situation is messed up. These guys escaped very easily. They're trying to pin it on some maintenance worker. A couple of these guys escaped a couple of times already. Like, it's crazy. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Could this have been prevented? Yeah, probably. Very easily. Just by having competent leadership and, employees. Let's see. What else do we got going through here? Okay, let's check this one out. Orleans Parish Sheriff boasts about jail security days before 10 inmates escape. So what is it? Do you have issues with security and doors falling off tracks? Or is your security so good that you boast about it? And then 10 inmates escape shortly after? I really this whole situation is crazy, but also not crazy for New Orleans. It's just finally all the incompetence is catching up to everybody, I guess.
The most important things about running a jail is, but one of the most important things about running a jail is that it's clean, that it's well maintained, and that all the systems work. As we have had a population that is 50% greater than when I got into office, it has taxed all of our systems from air conditioning to plumbing to electric. And we've got to maintain that. And it was not maintained before I got here.
But it is now, I suppose. All right. Join Fox News for access to this content. Okay, well, that's not going to happen. So hold on. Copy. Paste. All right. We need to do this. We need to do this. We need to block scripts. There we go. All right. Orleans Parish Sheriff Susan Hudson sent a campaign fundraising email highlighting security at the Orleans Justice Center 3 days before 10 inmates escaped from the facility, prompting criticism from a lawmaker who wants her to resign. Fuck, I want her to resign too. State and federal law enforcement officials have captured 5 of the 10 inmates who escaped from the Orleans Justice Center on May 16th. Hudson took accountability for the jailbreak during a New Orleans City Council meeting on Tuesday. Quote, "It is deeply troubling to me as your sheriff, and I know it is equally troubling to you and the public that we are sworn to protect. As your sheriff, I take full accountability for this failure, and it is my responsibility to make sure that it is addressed with the urgency and transparency," she told the council. 3 days before 10 inmates escaped from the Justice Center, Hudson sent a campaign fundraising email that boasts about security improvements at the jail. "Since I became sheriff, we worked hard to make the Orleans Justice Center safer for everyone," Hudson wrote. "Preventive maintenance is a priority, from taking out things that could be used as weapons to making sure that air conditioning and bathrooms work as they should." I'd say that bathroom worked as it should for those escaped inmates. It's exactly how they wanted it to work. In a separate YouTube video included in the email, Hudson said that there have been improvements to the Justice Center since she took office. Open a new tab. As we have had a population that is 50% greater than when I got into office, it has taxed all of our systems from air conditioning to plumbing to electric. And we got to maintain that. And it was not maintained before I got here. And so we have regular preventive maintenance, which is much cheaper than actually having to replace a whole system, such as an air conditioning system. Jesus Christ. You're trying to be a well-run organization as well. We put our plan in place, we assessed, put our plan in place, and now we're carrying that forward. Jesus Christ. We elected her? Democrat Louisiana House Rep Amy Freeman, who represents a portion of New Orleans, told Fox News she thinks the campaign email was ironic given it was sent just before 10 inmates escaped. Yeah, it was pretty ironic. Quote, "My reaction was how ironic that you would have sent this out and you seem to be asking for help, but yet you aren't presenting any. I don't see any solutions being presented. And that is another reason why I don't think she should be sheriff. But you are sheriff and the buck stops with you. I mean, I appreciate the sheriff's apology yesterday and took accountability at the city council meeting, but it took her 4 or 5 days to actually come to that conclusion. That's unacceptable." I totally agree. Yeah. She's asking for money, not saying what she's going to use the money on, just saying we need the money, we need the money, we need the money. They've given her money and she's done nothing with it. She's a failure of leadership, and her inadequacy in keeping the inmates locked up in prison is a failure at multiple levels. Her one job is to keep those inmates safe in custody and away from the general public and the citizens of our city and our state. Hudson, who is up for re-election in the fall, temporarily suspended her campaign on Tuesday night, but did not drop out. She should. Freeman's colleagues, Representative Jason Hughes, also called on Hudson to resign. Since 2013, the Orleans Justice Center has operated under a federal consent decree. Every 6 months, federal jail monitors question deputies at the jail. Every time they wrote reports finding jailers, quote, "incapable of describing what an acceptable security check would be like." The deputies assigned to the correctional facility in New Orleans don't even know what an acceptable security check would be like. I'm going to say it one more time just so you guys get this. Every time they wrote reports finding jailers incapable of describing what an acceptable security check would look like. Every time. It's no wonder these guys were out so long before they even fucking realized it, because they don't even know how to fucking do a security check. Fire fucking everybody. Fire all the sheriffs. Fire everybody. Fire the mayor. Fire the DA. This is fucking ridiculous. This is incompetence at its highest level. Kendall Miles, Robert Moody, Gary Price, DeKennon Dennis, and Corey Boyd have been recaptured by law enforcement, leaving 5 inmates at large. Boyd, the most recent inmate to be captured, was in jail on charges of second-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder, aggravated battery, and threatening a public official. The following inmates are still at large. Lenton Van Buren Jr., 26, faces charges of carrying a weapon illegally, possession of a firearm or firearm by a felon, or weapon by a felon, obstruction of justice involving contraband in prison. Jermaine Donald, 42, faces charges of second-degree murder, aggravated battery, possession of a firearm or weapon by a felon, and obstruction of justice. Antoine Massey, 32, faces charges of domestic violence involving strangulation, theft of a motor vehicle, and parole violations. Derek Groves, 27, faces 3 counts of attempted second-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and battery of a correctional facilities employee. And Leo Tate, Sr., 31, faces charges of simple burglary of an inhabited dwelling, possession of a firearm or weapon by a felon, and illegal carrying of a weapon, motor vehicle theft, and multiple drug counts. Multiple drug counts. So that's who they're looking for. That's who they're looking for. All right, we got this straight talk with the sheriff here. This is that video that she put out just days before the escape happened. So let's take a look. Leadership and protection. Re-elect Sheriff Susan Hudson. Straight talk with Susan Hudson. Improved jail conditions. Let's hear all about your improved jail conditions, Susan Hudson. Let's fucking hear it. Let's go.
The first thing, when I got into office again, we knew we had to make a change. 9 years under a consent judgment, we need to get out of it. We've got to meet the constitutional standards, which is the lowest standard, but we want to be above that. So we knew we had to assess what needed to be done, and we found out this jail was part of the problem. We assessed we had about $3.5 million worth of changes that we needed to make in the jail, from taking out metal that residents money, were breaking off of windowsills, removing cabinets that they were using to make weapons with. There were all kinds of hooks and things inside of actual jail cells that folks could use to harm themselves or harm others. We had to remove all those. And there's locks didn't work.
Get rid of the hooks, get rid of the filing cabinets, get rid of the windows, get rid of it all.
Imagine a jail in which locks don't work. And that's a great cost to rekey the entire jail. So we're starting with the funding that we have, because we did not receive additional funding to do this. We start with the funding that we have, and we go to the most critical pods. And those are the disciplinary pods, or the pods where we have people who prey on others in the jail. And then we just keep going from there. So we put a plan in, we assessed, we put a plan in place to fix what's broken and go from there. But one of the best.
What's the plan, though? Replace locks? It's not necessarily a plan.
The most important things about running a jail is that it's clean, that it's well maintained, and that all the systems work. As we have had a population that is 50% greater than when I got into office, it has taxed all of our systems, from air conditioning to plumbing to electric. And we've got to maintain that. and it was not maintained before I got here. So we now have regular preventative maintenance, which you know is much cheaper than actually having to replace a whole system, such as an air conditioning system. So we are trying to be a well-run organization as well. Put our plans in place. We assessed, put our plans in place, and now we're carrying that forward.
All right, we're fucking giving that video a thumbs down. Oh, I got to sign in. All right, we're going to copy. We're going to go here. Going to log in. No, thank you. We're thumbs down in this
when I
video.
got into office again.
All right. Let's we got this one. 3 more women arrested in connection with the New Orleans jailbreak. So it's just been a ton of ladies, and that one guy, the one maintenance worker, have been arrested in connection with helping these guys out. Tons of women. At least 3 more women have been accused of helping one of 10 inmates who escaped the New Orleans jail earlier this month were arrested over the weekend. And at least 2 face $1 million bonds. Patricia Van Buren, 18, and Tyshana Randolph, 27, were arrested on Saturday and booked in the Plaquemines Parish Jail on counts of accessory after the fact. They appeared the following afternoon before Magistrate Commissioner Jonathan Friedman during an Orleans Parish Criminal District Court session via Zoom, where their bails were set for $1 million. Van Buren and Randolph are accused of driving escapee Lenton Van Buren Jr. from Louisiana to a family member's house in Mississippi. Lenton Van Buren's 28-year-old sister, Lanika Van Buren, was also booked Friday in Jefferson Parish on a fugitive count and several traffic violations. Investigators said in court documents that Lenton Van Buren called Lanika and another sister from the jail the day before the escape, telling them to meet him outside the jail by 11:30 p.m. They were a little late. He also told them to have his girlfriend get him a clean phone. The day of the jailbreak, the sisters picked up their mother, Natasha Rudolph, from the jail just after midnight. According to the document, she was conveniently released from jail that night on unrelated charges. Investigators said Lanika drove her mother to her home in Marrero and then drove to New Orleans East, but gave conflicting statements about why she was in the East. The other sister, however, told investigators that the pair went to the house where Lenton Van Buren stayed immediately after he broke out of jail. It's unclear whether the sisters are related to the others involved. The latest arrest comes after at least 9 others have been booked on suspicion of aiding the men who broke out of jail in the early morning hours of May 16th. As of Sunday afternoon, 5 have been captured. All right. Just more about those guys. All right. We need stuff. All right. So it's just getting wild out there. Nobody knows where anybody is. We have, 5 more who are probably out of state by now. They got betting markets on Poly Market for the inmates. That's wild. Let's see. New Orleans inmate. Let's see. Nope, New Orleans. Maybe. Here we go. All New Orleans escapees captured in May? Come on, Popo, catch these fools. Yeah, so people are betting. It's not big, but people are betting. 5 more allegedly aiding escaped inmates in New Orleans captured. One of them was like grandma, so let's check it out. Probably make us watch a video. Like always.
For more on this, let's bring in Fox News contributor and former NYPD inspector Paul Morrow. Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's start in New Orleans. What's striking to me is the help that these guys apparently had breaking out of jail and the assistance they apparently have received since they've been on the run. What's your assessment of that case?
Well, prisoner escapes always have help, either inside or outside, or potentially both. In this case, it looks like they had both, so no surprise there. The delayed processing of the crime scene, the escape scene, is really unfortunate because according to all of the reporting, that panel could only have been removed from the outside corridor, which means that somebody who was involved, or more than one person, removed it and potentially left fingerprints, DNA, etc. So that just compounds what looks to be a bad issue. But just to unpack it a little further, let's remember, these were heavy predicate felons. Some of them awaiting trial. They were moved from maximum security to minimum security. And in this minimum security area, there was only 60% staffing. And this prison, this facility, was under federal oversight. There's a federal consent decree.
It's crazy that all these like alleged attempted murderers are all in minimum security. That's nuts.
My point is, it's very badly managed, quite clearly. And the inclusion of the federal government and a federal monitor that the citizens of New Orleans have to pay really didn't help very clearly. There needs to be another solution here. These federal consent decrees are being undone by executive order, thanks to President Trump. This is a long time coming. But I think somebody, the governor, somebody down there has got to get their arms around this because very clearly there's an ongoing issue.
Do you think the sheriff or someone higher needs to fire a lot of staff at that facility because it appears pretty serious?
I think the sheriff needs to be fired.
Absolutely. I mean, you really, really need a house cleaning here. And, you know, think about it from the perspective of the police. They make the arrests. They have to do battle with woke DAs. They have to do battle with a system that's decided that they're the bad guys. And then they get them in jail. You manage to get a conviction. And then you find out that they're placed in maximum security and all but invited to escape. So, you know, it can't be very good for New Orleans PD morale. And as I said, somebody really with some management experience really has to get their arms around this because New Orleans is one of our great cities. And it is joining the list of blue cities across the country that are really circling the drain.
For real.
The story CB Cotton told us about. What do you make of that case where allegedly this guy was held hostage and tortured by his crypto business partners?
All right. I don't care about that. Crypto business partners. Anyway, we have a statement from the lawyer of the guy that they're accusing of helping him out, the maintenance worker. So let me get that queued up and we'll check that out.
Is absolutely innocent that he was used as a tool by the escapees and is being used as a fall guy by Sheriff Hudson. Well, first off, him turning off the water is not an accusation. It's a fact. We readily admit that. He is the jail plumber. There was an overflowing toilet in what he tells me was a handicap stall that should not have been in use. Nevertheless, was open, and this toilet apparatus was clogged and spilling out into the floor. He was told by a deputy there was no work order. He asked, and the deputy convinced him that as he was there, could he just look at it? He assessed the situation, determined he would have to shut off the water to fix it, which he did in his role as jail plumber. A complete mischaracterization by law enforcement. Mr. Williams had a passing exchange with one of the inmates wherein he was assessing the toilet, made the determination he needed to turn off the water. The inmate, as he was there, happened to say something about shanking him. He didn't take this as a threat. He wasn't acting out of fear. He was taking this as normal jailhouse banter. Mr. Williams is absolutely innocent that he was used.
Being threatened with the shanking is normal jailhouse banter. That's wild. Man, that is wild. All right. New Orleans jail system was troubled decades before 10 men escaped. So yeah, this is wild. You know, remember all those videos where like it was just like people in jail partying? That was the New Orleans jail. The dysfunction dates back generations, continued even after the 2015 opening of the state-of-the-art Orleans Justice Center. It's not fucking state-of-the-art anymore. We We've got a jail with 900 cameras, but there's nobody watching them. The Inmates Gone Wild videos from a few years back don't even approach this, Ralph Goyeneche said. Ralph Goyeneche is a former prosecutor, and he runs the watchdog group over there. Quote, it's the sheriff or anyone was thinking about terminating the jail consent decree. The escape has ended any serious discussion about that. He's totally right. Conditions for the catastrophe have been ripe for months. An independent jail monitor warned of extreme inadequate staffing levels and dangerously lax supervision. Both factors in the jailbreak. Yeah, exactly. The sheriff initially deflected blame for the jailbreak, implying without evidence that it was politically motivated. She told city council she needed millions of dollars to fix outdated infrastructure, surveillance, blind spot in supervision, and critical staffing shortages. Meanwhile, she's out there having her deputies go and man Mardi Gras when they should be manning the jail. 55 years ago, a judge said New Orleans jail was unconstitutional. It's gotten worse. Said Ricky Peterson, who recalled inmates roaming the facility at their own leisure when the jail was about when he was jailed a decade ago. As time progressed, it started going down and down and down. Added Mario Westbrook, 48, who was jailed around the same time on gun possession and marijuana charges. You don't have to go through those types of conditions. In 1970, a federal judge declared the overcrowded prison to be unconstitutional. Suicides and in-custody deaths abound, including the fatal beating of a man by 2 deputies in 2004. A lawsuit alleged that female inmates were shackled during childbirth. Dude, that's barbaric. Then as now, the sheriff accused the city of chronically underfunding the jail. Yeah, that's why they had fucking pregnant ladies shackled while they were giving birth. Because of the money. The jailhouse videos. A major landmark came in 2013 when a class action lawsuit resulted in the consent decree, a detailed plan for overhauling the jail's policy, reduced violence, and improved inmate medical treatment. The litigation unearthed the viral jailhouse videos, which also included a 2009 clip of an apparently escaped inmate cavorting on the city's famed Bourbon Street for what the Justice Department described as an evening of leisure. The conduct in the video may have occurred several years ago, the Justice Department said at the time, but the policy, practices, and culture that enabled the outrageous conduct remained relevant. So it's a, what do they call it? Like institutional thing? Like nothing's going to change here. This is exactly how New Orleans is. Do the bare minimum and nobody will give a fuck usually, and then let everybody drink in the street. I mean, you even have like the DA getting mugged out in the street, but nothing will change. All right, let's do one more. Let's just do one more. Officials furious after 10 inmates escaped from New Orleans jail. Unprecedented.
Real quick before we get this is that video on Royal Street real quick before we get out to Eleanor Tabone, but this is right by the Hotel Monteleone. There's a lot of tourists and people in town, among other things, for that Tulane graduation. This is a very popular tourist spot outside.
All right, I don't think that's the right video. Yeah. But anyway, pretty much Jason Williams says it's unprecedented. Governor Landry is threatening everybody. If you escaped or helped the escapers, we're coming for you. The city council slamming the late notification. Let's hear Helena Morano, whatever her name is. She's running for mayor next, so I'm sure she has some stuff to say. Gotta watch that ad first.
inmates. Now, Helena Moreno is joining us by phone at this hour. It is 11:32. Helena, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, good to be with you, Kate.
Yeah, what can you tell us about what you know about how this happened and what's happening right now?
So I'll tell you this, and I'm actually in the downtown area right now, about to go into an event, and all through the neutral ground, we're seeing state police, other law enforcement agencies,
neutral ground is like the
going
median.
through, up and down the downtown area with their lights on. I saw Harbor Police as well. It looks like we've got some federal vehicles also involved. What I do know is that I am hearing that it appears at least one of the inmates is now in custody, apparently.
All right, so this is kind of old stuff. The AG, there's no excuse for this. State reps, it's alarming on every level. So Alonzo Knox, I know this guy personally, added that the scale of the escape raises serious red flags about jail security. I am deeply concerned and frankly alarmed by the news that 11 inmates managed to escape. That's not something we hear often. Yeah, no shit, bro. Like, where'd you learn how to give statements? Just state the obvious. I am relieved to learn that one escapee was captured in the French Quarter. No, I'm not relieved, and I will not be relieved until all of them are captured. The sheriff is out of office. All the deputies who work there are fired, all of them, and we just start all over, start fresh, get better leadership. The mayor has only said like 2 things about this. Even the fucking news reporter was like, hey, this is the first time we're seeing you. You got anything to say? Then she got all defensive. This is not the first time you're seeing me. Oh, that's not true. And like got all butthurt about that. Anyway, New Orleans is crazy. I've been saying this for years. New Orleans is a failed state. Nothing's going right. If anything, it's getting worse. You got Happy Gilmore's grandma can't even run the police force. They have terrorist attacks. You have an incompetent sheriff who can't run security at her own jail. You have 10 murderers who escaped, and 5 of them are still out there. You guys are in New Orleans or Louisiana or Mississippi or Texas or Arkansas or anywhere that's around there. Just be safe. Anyway. Oh, man. Make sure you guys follow me on YouTube at Deep South EDC. You can catch all the podcasts and everything else. We got playlists. Make sure you follow me on X where we got the spice. Always got the spice. Hey, did you know that Sig Sauer is in their paperwork saying don't keep a round in the chamber? Wonder why. What would be the point of that? Anyway, also follow me on Rumble. We got videos on Rumble, and just click the link tree. You can follow me everywhere. YouTube, Rumble. Got an Odyssey. If anybody is on Odyssey, you can find me there. X, Instagram, Minds. Got a Facebook. Don't really mess around there. And if you want, there are 2 places you could leave a channel donation via Cash App and PayPal. However, I know times are tough, so I don't really ask for money. Anyway, guys, it's a crazy one out there, and it is just getting crazier. Everybody in Louisiana and the South, surrounding areas, stay safe. All these victims of these people that have been failed by the sheriff, by the mayor, by the system in Louisiana and in New Orleans, thoughts and prayers and everything. We're with you, and stay safe out there. Man, it's fucking crazy out there, guys. It's nuts. Remember, stay well regulated. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.